Live on WFLA Now. With a specialized degree in climate, Chief Meteorologist and Climate Specialist Jeff Berardelli is pioneering the way we look at climate and extreme weather. Welcome to Jeff's Climate Classroom, powered by ArmorView Window and Door.
That symbol right there, that is the international symbol of climate change, and I'm interviewing today the guy who made this visual, who founded this event that's taking place tomorrow all around the world about 5 years ago or so. Let me tell you, this is the warming stripe symbol that shows how the Earth has warmed over the past several decades, and especially over the past 20 or 30 years or so. I'm meteorologist and climate specialist Jeff Berardelli. Welcome to Climate Classroom. This is a special one because tomorrow is International Show Your Stripes Day, and we want everybody on the Earth to participate with this. So I want to introduce my guest to you right now. Professor Ed Hawkins. I've known Ed for a little over 5 years right now, when this random meteorologist from the U.S. said, "Hey, Ed, can I help you get this symbol out across the world? Because I think it's a great tool to communicate climate change." Thank you for coming on the show to discuss it with us.
Thanks for inviting me, Jeff. It's great to see you.
It's great for you to be here. And Bernadette Woods-Plackey, who's been a great friend of mine for even longer than that, who really helped kind of nurture and incubate my entrance into climate change and climate, and who was instrumental in helping to get this specific event off the ground 5 years ago, which was called at the time Mets Unite, because it was meteorologists all over the world. Now it's everybody all over the world. Welcome, Bern.
Well, thanks for having me. This is really fun.
Yeah, no, this is where it all began. I got the band back together. we just need some instruments.
Can I tell a quick story of how you did this? Because I find this absolutely amazing, and every one of your listeners, viewers should know this.
Okay.
When Ed created this beautiful design that you're seeing on a closed Facebook page with a collection of our meteorologists in the Climate Matters program who are doing climate reporting, Jeff posts this. He goes, "Hey, look, I made this a tie. Who wants to wear a tie with me? Or ladies, what do you want?" And so I was like, okay, we can do this. I'm like, wear the tie, but let's go bigger, right? And so that was really, there it is. There's the tie. And that was Jeff's prompt to this beautiful design that Ed created, that the three of us got on a Zoom like this. We're like, okay, what can we do and how can we do it?
Yeah. So Ed, tell me about, first of all, why don't you tell us about the warming stripes, what they mean, and it's really simple and easy. That's what makes this such an elegant solution to climate communication. And then we'll kind of talk about everything else.
Yeah. So it's just a very simple graphic. All you see is 173 colored stripes. There's one stripe for every year since 1850 up to present, and every stripe is colored by the temperature of the globe in that year. And the blue colors are used for colder years, and the red colors are for hotter years. And they're arranged from left to right. So we start on the left in 1850 and end on the right in 2022. And what you see is that the colors change from the blues and the dark blues to light blues, and then slowly it changes to the light reds, and then very rapidly it changes to the dark reds right at the end, showing the very rapid warming over the last few decades. So this is the global average temperature changing very rapidly over the last few decades compared to the century before that.
When I first saw this, and it was several months before June 21st, which was, when we started this Mets Unite, which became Show Your Stripes, I just happened to be at a place in my life where I was frustrated at the lack of climate communication and at the lack of people understanding just how much of a dire need it was that we be educated on climate change. And I was looking for a simple way to communicate it. And when I saw this, I said, this is it. Some of the best companies in the world have the simplest logos. And essentially this has really become synonymous with climate change. It was the front of Greta's book. The U.S. House of Representatives Climate Committee used it. I saw the AMS, the American Meteorological Society, used it recently. The UN uses it. So let's talk about how this kind of happened, Ed. I mean, it took on a life of its own.
That's right, it did. So I was invited to speak at a book festival, a literary festival in the UK called the Hay Festival, which is very famous here. And I was going to be speaking to people who are there for a book festival, not for a science talk. And I was partnered with a wonderful poet called Nicola Davies, who's
Oh, did we lose you, Ed? Oh, looks like Ed. Oh, you're back, right, Ed?
Sorry. So yeah, I was going to this book festival to talk about climate change, and I wanted a really simple way to talk about climate change to people who are there for a book festival and not for a science talk. And so I made the first graphic, which was for the town of Hay itself. And you can even see the warming at a small town in the UK, the stripes going from mainly blues to mainly reds. And as soon as I put it on the screen and told people what it represented, you could see their eyes open. They instantly understood what it meant, that it meant that the temperatures were changing where they were right then, and it had already changed over the previous few decades. And it definitely opened eyes. And I realized then that this was a very effective tool for communicating very, very simply.
Yeah, and so thank goodness you have the skills that are necessary to turn data into visuals. And I think some of the most compelling ways to communicate climate change are through visuals. Bern, you are a master climate communicator. So tell me, when you first saw this, did a light bulb go off like it did with me?
Absolutely. But I think it was you prompting it in a new way that created the light bulb to just explode, right? It's clearly a gorgeous design. And as we're seeing, it's bringing in people who aren't necessarily looking for climate information in different ways. If you wear the pin, if you sport something with the stripes on it, people are like, oh, that's really pretty. And it's the opportunity to start a conversation on climate change. It's a real prompt to go to a place that might not have happened otherwise. So yeah, absolutely. So we were like, this is so cool. But when you applied it to a tie, that's when it not only was obvious that we could put it on a lot of things in beautiful ways, but use it as a moment to collectively raise voices and start those conversations, because everyone having their conversations is very critical. But when we can come together and really amplify that on one individual day or throughout the year on different days, it just creates a bigger impact in the conversations that we're having.
I have a confession to make. You might not know this. I only have one vice in life, and it's ties. I have a ridiculous tie collection. If I sold it, I could buy a house. It is ridiculous. So when I saw your image, I saw the visual, I said, I'm going to make this into a tie. What a crazy way to kind of start this, huh? So Ed, the next graphic I'm going to show is going to be of all the new ways that this symbol is being used all around the world. Why don't you tell us about that? Yeah,
so we've collected together a lot of very iconic images that we've seen that have used the stripes. The first one I really noticed actually was a chap in Minnesota who wrapped his Tesla car in the stripes.
I remember
and
that.
Talked about how he took his Tesla to various car shows and had so many climate conversations at car shows that he would never otherwise have had. And it was because precisely what Bern said, it prompts people to ask questions. They would come up to him and ask him, what have you done to your car? Why does it look like that? And you could have that conversation very naturally about what those graphics represented. And I think that's so powerful. So on the screen now, you see some of the ways that others have used the graphics. We see a bridge in Germany in the middle, which is being painted by crowdfunding and volunteers painting the bridge in Leipzig. We see our local soccer team here in Reading using the stripes on their kit last season. You see TV meteorologists using it. You see a bus painted in the stripes as well. You see cyclists. You see a fashion show in the top right. A wonderful designer called Lucy Tamam made a series of outfits, which she exhibited at London Fashion Week as well. So the power of this graphic is it can be adopted and adapted in so many different ways to reach so many different audiences and prompt conversations in places which would never talk about climate change normally, such as at a football game, for example, or in a fashion show. It starts those conversations.
Now, there's Greta's book. It must be Christmas every day for you, because Bern, you see this on Twitter and on social media. Every week or so, something new happens with the climate stripes pattern. So for you, Ed, it must be Christmas every day when you see this invention of yours, which you probably never in a million years thought would do what it does, really kind of grow to become the international symbol of climate change.
It's amazing to see every time that someone takes this concept and runs with it and does something so creative and novel with it. And that's its simplicity and its power, is that we've let it out there into the world to be used. Anyone can take it, use it however they want, to start the conversation in their own way. And so many people have done that in such novel and creative ways that it's inspiring to see all those different ways around the world.
Burn, the graphic up there right
now. Put
now
an exclamation point on that from Ed's side, because often when people create something, they try to own it, correct? And Ed went out of his way to make sure he didn't own this. He really wants people to make it their own and to use this day, use this opportunity, use this design, and go big and be creative and do something that applies to your work and your world, where you can drive additional climate conversations or climate reporting or climate knowledge or climate campaigns, whatever works best for you. But I just have to stress how critical that was and how beautiful that was on Ed's side to really, I mean, he had to go through hoops to make sure it wasn't owned by him so that people could do this.
Yeah, I mean, that is such a big part of this, right? It's when scientists create work, when they invent stuff, sometimes they own it, in which case it doesn't get it doesn't get used by the masses. In this case, you allowed for that. And by the way, there's merchandise. People are probably going to ask, and people always ask me, where can I get this? Where can people these days, Ed, get this? And specifically both in Europe and the US, because I know I remember last year there was a concern about whether stuff would be shipped and whether it would be shipped in time and how much money it would cost for shipping. So why don't you tell people?
So, yeah, I mean, there's lots of places that you can find merchandise. We're not really very directly involved in any of those, but if you do a search on your favorite search engine for warming stripes attire or ties, then you'll definitely be able to find somewhere in your area where you can buy mugs or bags or t-shirts or ties or earrings or whatever you like to wear to communicate. So please do that search and see what you can find.
So this is the very first mug. In fact, I'm going to put it so close to the camera. I use it so much, Ed, that look at it. The stripes are starting. And by the way, it's missing 5 stripes because I made this in 2018. This is the very first tie too. Again, missing 5 red stripes, unfortunately for us, because the climate's been warming so fast. So I do need to get some new merch. I didn't realize that you weren't involved with that at all, but it is interesting because people are taking your design and actually putting it on merchandise and selling it on the internet. In fact, I remember at some point last year, the year before, someone walked up to me with a warming stripes coffee mug, like almost a Starbucks type coffee. I was like, where did you get that from? I didn't even know that existed.
No, I certainly see people selling it all kinds of places online, and that's okay. Actually, we want these graphics to be used to start conversations. We're not in it to make money out of this. We just want to start conversations.
I have a picture, JB. I think, I'm not sure if I'm on the right picture or not, but let's see if it is. Okay. Oh, can we make this full screen? Ed, you sent this, I don't know if this is available on your website, but you sent this directly to me at some point. This is 2,000 years of temperature using, what's the name of that initiative? I can't remember off the top of my head now.
Yeah, so this is data from a project called Pages 2K.
Right.
So one of the things that always gets said when we show these graphics which normally start around 1850 or so, is what happened before 1850. And the answer is that we don't have very detailed records from thermometers before about 1850. We do for certain places around the world, but not representative of the full globe. So to go back further in time, to put the modern warming into context, we have to use what are called proxies, or other ways of estimating what the temperature was doing. And so we can use tree rings and ice cores and other ways of reconstructing what temperature was doing back for 2,000 years. So that's what's shown in this graphic. We see temperatures over the last 2,000 years with the modern warming right at the end, a very rapid spike right at the end. And you can see on this graphic, there's a little annotation saying the invention of the steam engine in the 1780s here in the UK. And that kick-started the Industrial Revolution and kick-started our emissions of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere by burning fossil fuels. And soon after that happened, you see this very rapid warming start. So before that, the Earth was cooling very slightly, probably due to lots of volcanic eruptions and a slow dimming of the sun and our orbit changing around the sun. But since the Industrial Revolution, things have taken off, and that's because of our activities.
It's alarming. It's definitely alarming. So, Bern, you got involved, brought Climate Central into the mix so that there was an effort happening in the U.S. and also in the U.K. So I want to talk a little bit about how people can get involved tomorrow, because it's always on June 21st, the summer solstice.
Absolutely. So the reason we really honed in on June 21st between the three of us was that's kicking off the season of the biggest extremes in the Northern Hemisphere. I know we may have some people joining us from the Southern Hemisphere here, but in the Northern Hemisphere, our biggest extremes kick in during this season, right? The heat, the intensifying hurricanes that we're seeing, the worsening wildfires. There's a lot. And so we want to help people understand the connections of what they're seeing and help them understand what they can do about this. There's so many climate solutions going on right now for bringing down how we use fossil fuels, to switching over to electricity in our transportation sector, in our houses, in our buildings, in the way that we're moving things around in the world. And so there's a lot going on that's good. So this is a prompt really so people could use it in the ways that make sense to them. I mean, we know through a lot of social science, right, that people know the climate is changing and something's happening. They don't always understand what exactly, how they're connected to those changes, and what can be done about those. And so here's an opportunity to do that. Now, ways that anyone listening right now wants to jump in on their own, there are two places you can get this information. showyourstripes.info. That's the page that Ed has put together, and it has all of the countries, many cities around the world. The oceans are warming at extraordinary rates, especially we're seeing some of that in the news right now. And then in the United States at Climate Central, we package that together with US cities. And so if you go to climatecentral.org, you can look on our website right there for the stripes information, and you can get local cities in the US like you're seeing in Tampa right now. Yep. So we just really encourage you to go get these, use them, share them on social media, use them as a prompt in any way. And if you want to get some of the gear, as Jeff was talking about, it is fun. Just Google around, because I'm always amazed at how much more gear is popping up.
That scarf, Bern, did you show people your scarf?
This is one of the things. And this is so Lucy Tamam, who's the fashion designer in London and made this her fashion show, has worked with many of us to help us with getting some scarves at price. And also she made me a beautiful shirt that I'm going to be wearing tomorrow. Okay. But she's made some really incredible designs and helped people too. So she's not trying to go crazy on that. She's really tried to help a lot of people in the climate change space get this at cost, so that the word can get out and the message can get out and the gear can get out. But there's a lot of different ways you can do this. And I mean, we've seen in the United States, everything from beer cans to people bring it in, as Ed was showing, the range of different ways people brought it in internationally. And I mean, we can't not say, last week, the Pope, right? The Pope you had stripes on.
I was about to bring
come on, people, like, we can do this.
Wait. I think I have that picture. Hold on a second. I'm pretty sure. Just give me a second here. I'm making my way through.
Make your way through.
I put the Pope in here. Let me see if I can find
it. Ed, what was your reaction when you saw that? That was so fun.
That was pretty incredible. I found out a couple of days before that it was going to happen, and that this organization in Italy had made a special papal stole, a scarf, a special scarf for the Pope, and he was presented with that a week or so ago at an event, and it was just fantastic to see someone like that being presented with this type of information.
I forgot the Pope. I don't know how I forgot the Pope, because I was doing this at 1:00 in the morning. That's the reason why I forgot the Pope. But that was like the biggest thing. And I really thought I had the Pope in there. But that's got to be such an honor, and to see it on dignitaries all over the world.
We've seen the Pope wearing it, and I think also politicians as well. I think that's really important. We've seen in Australia.
Oh, there it is.
There it is.
This is JB is the wizard. He's the wizard behind the curtain. Thank you, JB.
Go, JD.
When I fail, JB picks me back up again when I fall.
Yeah.
The other thing that's true is, even if you don't have the gear ahead of time, there are people that are doing patterns on their fingernails. I mean, it's amazing what some people are doing right now.
That's not going to be me.
To make it their own. Some people, there's a whole knitting community, makes this a design and makes it into scarves and blankets. And in the United States this year, and in the UK, there are landmark cities bridges, different landmarks in these cities that are lighting up with the stripes. There are about 30 of them around the world. So this is another way that it's getting applied to different things.
I did not know that. Wait, say that again for my information.
So there are about 30 different cities in the US, and there are a couple in the UK too, which I don't have the full list in front of me, so I don't want to mess it up. Ed could jump in on that. But my colleague Lauren Casey's been working to submit all these applications around the US, and there are about 30 different places that are lighting up landmarks. They're bridges, they're monuments, they're buildings, there's different things. And on that Stripes page at climatecentral.org, you can get a list of all those places that are lighting up.
Very good. Well, I don't know if one of them's in Tampa, but that was going to be one of my next moves, Ed. My daughter, I have a 19-month-old daughter. It's one of the reasons I work so hard on climate change too, because I want to prepare her for her future, and I'm hoping that her future will be not as bad as it possibly could be if we continue going down this road. But anyway, once I get free from the changing diapers, Ed, I promise I'm going to be back in full steam, getting this visual out there amongst as many you can possibly see it.
Yeah, so in London tomorrow night, we have the Tate Modern Museum on the South Bank lighting up with the stripes. So if you're in London, you can go along and see that late tomorrow night. And there's been a couple of other landmarks as well, which we'll probably see over the next couple of days.
Great. That's great. Okay, guys, listen, we're kind of wrapping up here. There's what you want to say to folks before we go.
I guess, just say to everyone out there, use the stripes tomorrow, start a conversation, do it in whatever way you feel is best to get the message out. Start a conversation with your friends and your family and your colleagues, and use that to talk about the solutions that we need to implement.
On social media,
Absolutely.
#ShowYourStripes, okay? On social media, #ShowYourStripes. All right.
Absolutely. And if you need more help in any way, if you have big campaigns you want to take on for next year, because it's going to keep going, reach out to Jeff, Ed, myself, and we can help get you connected to more stripes to do even more stuff next year.
Great. I can't wait to see what comes out of this tomorrow. I'm always surprised by what ends up happening on Show Your Stripes Day. So just want to say thanks, guys, for joining me. I can't wait to see the results of this campaign tomorrow. And I want to thank everyone at home for joining us for this week's Climate Classroom. Remember, you can get it not only here on WFLA.com, but you can read it right there. There's an article on WFLA.com right now. You can also watch this after the fact on YouTube. And we also post this as a podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. For Ed Hawkins and Bernadette, I'm meteorologist Jeff Berardelli. Make it a great day. See you tomorrow for Show Your Stripes.
Watch or listen to Jeff's Climate Classroom, powered by Armor View Window and Door on WFLA social media platforms, and find Jeff's climate reports on WFLA.com.